As far as my text editor setup, why don't I show you my extensions and general settings? I'll try to keep this sweet and short since some extensions are quite self-explanatory and some will make more sense as we start to use them. So my plan is to readdress them the moment we start using them in a course. So I'm going to head over to my icon and I'm going to click on Visual Studio Code and I'm going to maximize the screen just so we can see it better. Here we have the welcome screen, which obviously we can get rid of. And then these five icons is going to be one is going to be for our folder structure. Then we can search something in a Visual Studio Code and replace it if we want. Then this is going to be our Git setup for the source control. And we will going to come back to this one once we're done with the first project. Then we have an also option for debugging. And these are going to be our extensions. Now, if you want to search for extension in your actual extensions, so you can write live server. So let's say this is going to be an example. And if this is the extension you would like to install, you can obviously click on it, or you know what, let's click on this guy. And then we're clicking install. Now, for some extensions that we're going to ask you to reload the text editor. So go ahead and do that. Nothing is going to break and everything is going to work as expected. As far as rest of the extensions that have been installed, the moment I install that extension, it's going to show up right here. Now, what extensions I'm going to be using. And you know what, by the way, if you click on extension, you can get more info about that extension even before you download it. And we're going to start with bracket per colorizer. This is going to be the one. And you know what? I did open it in the browser and that's not what I wanted. And this is going to be the one that is quite self-explanatory, that as our code blocks are going to go bigger and bigger, I'm going to have an option of having different colors for my brackets. It might not seem like a big deal, but eventually I think you're going to appreciate that extension. Then next one up, we have the snippets, which at the moment are not going to make a lot of sense. However, as you're going to be creating more and more components, you'll see that it is much more niftier to use this 3-letter syntax instead of typing all the imports and exports, as well as, let's say, the actual component. Then I have the highlight matching tag. And the reason for that, again, especially doing the screencast, this allows me to show you where the div starts and ends, because we will going to be nesting a lot of things. So this way I can show you, okay, so this would be, let's say, parent container, and then this would be the child container. And when I say container, I also mean it as a component. So it's going to work both ways. Now, for this particular extension, you also have an option of adding additional colors and settings in general for these actual highlighting. And as you can see right here, they give you this option that you can copy and paste to your JSON settings and change the values. Now, the way this is going to work, if I'm going to head over to the settings, then let's imagine that I already copied and pasted those lines of code. And then we're looking here for the JSON settings. Now, within the JSON settings, like I said, this is going to be copied and pasted. And then I just changed the value. So I said that I would like to be a little bit more width. Then also the style was solid, as well as the color was yellow. Now you can change it to whatever you would like, but this was the options that I chose here. So let me close the JSON for now. And what else we have? So like I said, this is what I copied and pasted from their documentation and just changed it to my liking. Then we have the indent rainbow. Again, the self-explanatory one that as your code grows bigger, it's probably a little bit more useful if you see the indentations of where the code block starts and where it ends. Then we have the live server, which we're not going to use in this course, but I do like it for the static files because this offers a lot of nice features. But Create React App, which we're going to use in this course, obviously offers us its own development server. So we're not going to be needing this live server altogether. Then we have the Prettier, which is a very, very, very useful extension. And let me repeat one more time, very useful extension, because this is going to allow us to format our code as we're working with React project. Now, the way this particular extension is going to work is that not only you're going to be able to install this extension, you also might go to the settings. And when I say might, you probably would want to do that where you have the option of, let's say we can search here, format, and then we have two options of format on paste and format on save. Now you have two ways how to do that. So either you can click on these boxes and this is going to be automatically saved in your JSON, or if you want to be more particular, you can go to your JSON and again add editor format on paste equals to true, as well as editor format on save. Now, what this is going to allow us to do is, like I said already before, as we're working with React, this is going to format our files right away as we're pasting or as we're saving, which you will going to find very, very useful later on as again your components go bigger and bigger. And let's say over here that this is what they're telling you. So format on save, and this is the option that you should be looking for. Now, there's also another one that I'm using with static files, the preview and web server, because even though I like the live server, it has some features that I'm not a big fan of. So if there's a case where this live server starts acting up on me, I usually switch to preview and web server. Again, we're not going to use this throughout our course, but since it's here, I might as well tell you what I'm using it for. And then last but not least, we have Visual Studio Components, which allows us to work with styled components and have our CSS set up normally like our CSS would look like. We are not going to cover this right now, so there's a long way for us to get to styled components. But the moment we get there, again, I'm going to head over back and I'm going to show you what would be the difference of if we're using this extension or we're not. Because again, I think it will gonna make our development experience much more nicer if we do have this extension installed. Then those would be my extensions. However, I like to go back again to my settings, and then I have my JSON settings and kind of briefly go over what is happening here. So currently my zoom level is at 3, but the moment I'm obviously going to be zooming in or out, this is going to be changing. I do have my font size at 26 because again, I'm doing the screencast. So I find it to better option of having a bigger font size because that allows you to see everything that's happening. Now, editor tab size, I have only on 1 because I don't find it tabs to be very useful. Where you could have it, I don't know, to maybe 2 or 4. That's usually a typical option. Then files autosave, I have it off, and you could find it here on the autosave of off because I just don't find it useful. Then the word wrap is on for me because as we're writing more and more code, I don't like the fact that I would need to scroll left and right. I find it much more useful if we're wrapping to the next line. Then we have 2 of the ones that we covered, format on paste and format on save. I got rid of the mini map, so I set it equal to false. Then highlight matching tags. This is something we already covered. And this is something really important where we have the emmet. Now, for those of you who don't know, emmet is a extension in general that allows you to speed up your workflow with HTML and CSS. Now, the way it works, then you're typing some kind of code. Let's say you would want a div, so you don't need to type everything out. You just type, again, some kind of letters, the classes, the ID, something like that. And this auto generates right away the HTML or CSS for you. As we're working with React, we're going to be working with something called JSX. And this is very useful if you do have these settings set up this way. So that way you have an option of using the JSX with emmet. And again, this is really, really going to speed up your workflow. So if you do want to have the emmet actually available with JSX, these are the lines of code that you're going to have to add to your JSON settings. Also, I have the terminal window. And by the way, as a side note, if you want to open up the terminal window in a Visual Studio Code, you just need to press Control and tilde character, which is left from your 1 key. Now, I'm going to cover this the moment we are done with setting up Create React tab. And this is going to be the alternative of working on a terminal. So we're going to have 2 options. So you either are going to be able to run all your commands from the terminal. And obviously this is going to happen from the folder that we're working in. Or what's neat about this integrated terminal is the fact that this right away works in a folder. But again, I'm going to return to this once we actually get to the point where we try to use it. And last but not least, the full reload is set to false. And this is just because, again, there's going to be some features with live server that I don't like. And that's the reason why I set this one to false. But in our case, this is not going to make any kind of difference. Now, these would be my general extensions as well as the settings for my Visual Studio Code text editor.